Hello everyone, I'm Sidhant. After a short gap of 2 days because of my throat infection, I was unable to speak. Still, I have some glitches in my voice, but I understand that it would be clear to you. So, since it will be clear to you, so we will proceed with that. Since I am recovering very strongly, I am on medication, and I think in 1 or 2 days I will be all right. So, moving on to the chapter 7. The chapter name is Responsibility of the Collecting Bank. See, we had in the last chapter learned about what the paying bank is and what is collecting bank. We also touched that, but as simply, what is collecting bank? The bank which collects the instruments, the bank which collects the instruments mentioned in the Negotiable Act, instruments like drafts, checks, etc. So this collecting is for that. So in the last chapter we already had taken one example of the SBI and the PNB, and who's the collecting bank and the who's the collecting and who's the paying bank. Here also we will take the same example and we will proceed further. So let's say PNB, this is the bank. You had your account, let's say it's you had your account in the Punjab National Bank, and let's say SBI, and your very good friend has their accounts in the State Bank of India. So when friends wants you to make a payment through the check, so he will make a check of rupees, let's say 10,000 of rupees, and he will deliver it to you. Now what will you do? You will since you have a check of a state bank, so you need to encash it, but you can only encash only after depositing it into the Punjab National Bank. In Indian scenario, what happened in order to culminate the money laundering processes, which is very frequent in Indian banking system, so every checks are cross-check. It simply means that the amount will be paid on the account itself. It will not be paid in the cash. It's also the rules of the government in many of the areas. So when he gives you the check of rupees 10,000, so you will first go to your bank, PNB. You deposited the check, and so here, which one is the collecting bank? Here the PNB collects the check, is therefore the PNB is the collecting bank. So moving on to the chapter itself, see the collecting banks, the process involved by collection of the checks and the bill payments is mainly ruled by the practices than by laws. As more often than not, it has been said that in the banking system, that banking system is all about the practice, less about the laws. But according to my view, we should respect the laws and we should also adopt the practices. We should take both of them together, so that if you follow the rules and the laws, you will be safe to the far extent. Because whenever there is a mistake finding inquiry has been set up about, then they will see only the laws and the rules. So simply follow the rules and the regulations, adopt the best practices, and do the bankings. That's simple. Now next, the statutory protection. What is the statutory? I already told you what statutory means. The statutory means simply the power granted by the laws. That's the statutory. So the statutory protection, where we the bankers are provided protection, it's mentioned in the Negotiable Instrument Act. Even our the holidays are decided by the Negotiable Instrument Act. But here we are discussing the instrument, so we will stick to that. The statutory protection means that protection regarding the collecting bank is mentioned in the Negotiable Instrument Act under section 131. Now the 131 section is for the check and 131A is for the bank draft. Simply. My voice might be louder than actual, so if you are feeling a louder voice, then kindly lower down the volumes because my sound got very heavy after the infection. So statutory protection we already completed. Okay, now the non-liability of the bankers. As in the last chapter we dealt in one of the section that if we are doing something with a very good faith or we are doing something without any negligence, then we are very protected from anything. It's a universal law in the banking. If you are doing anything with a very good motive and if you are doing anything without negligence, then you are safe in any environment. So here also under section 131 you are provided the protection conditioned the same, that you must be acting in a good faith and you must be acting without any negligence. So this is the condition. Now what is the duties of the collecting banks? It's very simple. Whatever you are doing in the banking, day-to-day banking is the duties in the is the duties of the collecting bank. This is something you are already applying, so you just have to read this. First, duty to open account with references and the sufficient and the document proof. Let's say as I am discussing about my experience. Let's say in the rural people doesn't have accounts because they don't need money to keep into their accounts. So what they do, let's say when some of the sarpanch signs the check on his name and cross the check, so they come to our branch. Now when we see the cross check, we guides them that you have to first open the account, then the account the amount will be credited. So they are ready to open the account. So before opening of the account, we have to follow the KYC procedures, which is being applied by the Reserve Bank of India, which is very important. After the PMLA, that is Prevention of Money Laundering Act of 2002, this KYC is got very stricter. So the duty to open account, it's not that we have to open an account. We have to open an account with a very good background status, like the name is not conflicted, the name is mentioned in the Aadhaar or the PAN card is same, the name the address is very much verifiable. You in some of the cases you have to visit the address and see that whether the person is living at that place or not. So that's the that you have to ascertain that this person is existing in this particular area. So you can open that account very easily. Next, first we discussed the duty to open account with the references and the sufficient document proof. Second, duty to confirm the references where referee is not known. Let's say you are posted in one of the very newly branch and you don't have any customer at all, and the first customer came itself. So when he writes about the references which doesn't have the accounts, you need to verify all the persons, including the references as well as the referee. You have to visit its home and inquire about whether this person lives at that place or not. So this is the things. Duty to ensure crossing or the special crossing. Let's say some persons gives you the check. So either you have to cross the check or the person, or you have to ask the person to cross the check first, then submit it, because the collecting check in order to keep the in order to keep ourselves safe, we are to deposit that amount in the account itself. We are not to pay in the cash. Now the verification of the instrument. The verification of the instrument is the part of the duties of the collecting bank. As we have discussed that we have to do the things without any negligence. So verification of the instrument is nothing but the verification of the check, the verification of the date, the verification of the UV light, that the check under the UV light we did, whether the check is correct or not, or check the amounts mentioned, the words and the letters, words and the numbers are same. You have to check all these things with your own. So next, the state of the customer's account, whether the customer's account is in sync with what he's doing. Let's say one person who is a peon in one of the companies, in one of the government body, but he's submitting his he wants to encash a check of worth of rupees 5 lakh and 10 lakh more frequently in 1 or 2 months. So there is a doubt in that you have that this is a person who earns mostly around 15,000 or 20,000, but he is getting a check of 5 lakh in 2 to 3 months. Then you have a little of the doubt. Then you can also ignore, you can also deny that by saying the person that I don't think. You can give the reasons and you can deny the collection of the check in that case. Next, negligence of the collecting bank in the collecting check payable to the third parties. Okay, these are the sixth point we are most aware of. We also, whenever there is a third party in anything, we takes utmost care of it. So even in the collection of the checks, if it is delivered by any third party, then we have to keep lots of things in mind, and we have to ask the desired questions, and then we have to collect the check if we are satisfied with the answers what he had given. So I think that's I covered the important basics of the topic. Okay, one thing is important for the examination point of view. In order to get the first division's marks, if you are targeting that, what you need to get a basics first. Once you get the basics, what is required next is the implementation through the practicing questions. Once you start practicing questions, you will get to know what kind of questions they are asking, and once you know what kind of questions they are asking, you can able to trace out what can be the questions in the examination. So practicing question is very important, and since we are discussing the basics gives you the completion of the syllabus, 30 and 40% of the completion of the syllabus. But once you started practicing questions, it will cover around 70 to 80% of the questions, 70 to 80% of the syllabus, and you will easily get more than 60 plus marks in the examination. Now the next, some important points which are to be kept in mind, like the check should be crossed, yes, either by the banker or the person itself. Next, the post-dated check should not be collected if it is greater than 3 months. Okay, the validity period of any check which is in collection, it should be not more than 3 months. Now the defect in title. Who is responsible? The defect in the title, the collecting bank is not responsible for conversion. Let's say, for example, your name is Ram and some other Ram steal the check from you, and he deposited in his bank. So that collecting bank is not responsible at all, because the name is same, and the Negotiable Instrument Act, according to section 131, gives us the protection with the name gives the protection to the collecting bank with the defect in the title. So we are safe in that. Next, the protection is allowed in conversion. Whenever there is a conversion, the protection is allowed to the collecting bank. Conversion means simply, let's say one person whose name is Ram, and the person who stole the check from Ram is also the name having the Ram, so that's nothing but a conversion. So protection is not allowed in the, as far as the collecting banks are concerned, the protection is not allowed in the fraudulent, of course, encashment. Next, forgery, negligence, and the lack of good faith. So these things should be kept in mind. Now, next is the agent concept. You must have known what agent is. Agent is someone who do something for someone. For example, I will tell you with an example. Okay. Let's say in this case, you has an account in PNB. So here PNB act as an agent for you, and let's say, and since you have deposited this money, since you have deposited SBI check to the PNB, now PNB send this check to the State Bank of India for the clearing. Now this for this State Bank of India, for this Punjab National Bank, this SBI is the agent. So this is the agent concept, which do something for someone is the agent simply. And one more concept I would like to say, let's say the one who gives the services, the one who gives is the R, and the one who takes is E. Now you will ask, what is R, what is E? It can be anything. Let's say lender, lendee. Next, bailer, bailee. And lots of relationships are there. You must have learnt in the principle. So it's a trick that one who gives is the R and the one who takes is the E. Okay. For next, for unreasonable delay, bank is liable. For unreasonable delay, the bank is liable for all the amount that he has. We also discussed in the last chapter. We also revised in this chapter as well. Okay, that's it for the chapter number 7. For today, we will also upload the chapter number 8, which is very simple. Now, okay, thank you.